Guys, so this week I'm just showing you quickly my meal prep plan inside of one of my journals. So I've got everything marked out, and then as I make it I will cross it off. This is just a good way of me to keep track of what I've made, what's in the fridge, and then I leave this out on the table if anybody wants to see what might be on the menu for the week. Alright, so first up I'm making these super quick chocolate filled crescent rolls. So I just have some Ghirardelli chocolate discs or circles or whatever you want to call them, and then just a roll of crescent rolls. These are the Annie's organic crescent rolls. They're a little bit better than like your Pillsbury dough ones. But you just simply roll these out, and then you'll see me put about 3 of those discs inside of each crescent roll, roll it up the best that I can, and place those on the baking dish to go into the oven. You can definitely do this with just semi-sweet chocolate chips or milk chocolate chips. I had these in milk chocolate chips and then dark chocolate, so I just went ahead and used the milk chocolate chips for this. Alright, so here those are out of the oven, all nice and toasty. My kids will just grab these for breakfast, and they can eat them on the go, or they can warm those up and watch some morning cartoons. Alright, so next up I'm making a potato hash recipe, and I really don't have a recipe for this. It's just something that I started making a while ago with just things I had left over in the fridge, and sometimes it changes. So you'll see that I'm using some peppers, some onion, and then I shredded up some potatoes. These are just russet potatoes this time. Sometimes they're sweet potatoes. You can do this with sweet potatoes as well. I'm using turkey bacon in mine, but you can also use a good breakfast sausage. You can use regular turkey bacon. You can use sausage patties, which are a little bit quicker to cook. And then I also added some eggs, and I'm trying to think of what else. I think it was just the eggs and the potatoes, and we'll see what else. Maybe I added something else in there. So let's watch. Alright, so you see I rinsed off my potatoes, I gave them a little bit of a scrub, and then I went ahead and added some cheesecloth into this bowl, because when you're pan cooking or pan frying potatoes, you need to squeeze out as much of the water as possible, otherwise they take absolutely forever to cook. So you'll see that I shred up a bunch of potatoes, I squeezed the liquid out. I did not worry about peeling my potatoes either, so I don't eat really for aesthetics, I eat for health. So it does make the potato hash a little bit brownish looking in the end, but I'm okay with that. So shredding up the potatoes, squeezing as much of the liquid out as I can, and then we're going to move on from there. so here are some items that I actually got in my Imperfect Produce box. I had some red onions. I don't know why they call them red onions because they're purple, but red onions, and then I had a couple different colors of peppers. So I'm going to dice those up and I'm going to set those aside in a bowl because I will saute those in a pan first before adding my eggs to them, and then I add my bacon and my spinach, and then I cook the potatoes in a separate pan during all of this meal prep. So I'm kind of doing everything all at once. I'm doing breakfast and I'm doing lunch and I'm doing dinner. So back behind me, actually, while I'm cutting these peppers up, I have some noodles boiling in a pot for kids' lunches, and then you see my potatoes are waiting there for the pan back behind me to warm up. That has some coconut oil and a little bit of ghee in there as well together. So then I pan fry those potatoes and then I add them all together in the end. All right, so now that all of those veggies are all diced up, I went ahead and cooked my turkey bacon in the oven at 375 until it was nice and dark and crispy. Makes it a little bit easier to cut up. And then I will whisk some eggs together with a little bit of milk, some salt, some pepper, and then everything is going to go into the pan and get cooked and get ready to be portioned off into bowls. Alright, so here are the buttered noodles that were cooking back behind me as I meal prepped those potato hash bowls. And all I do is drain those, add a little olive oil and ghee to them so that the noodles don't stick together. That way in the mornings I can heat up just a portion of that, put it in their thermos. We add a little Parmesan cheese, or I give them a little side of mozzarella and a little salt and pepper, and that is ready to go for lunches. All right, so now we are moving on to lunch for my husband and I. So I grabbed some of these chicken and Gruyere garlic sausages, and I actually end up only using a couple packages of those. So I'm just going to cut those up into smaller pieces, and then I just pan fry those. They're already pre-cooked, so you really just have to warm them throughout. You don't want to cook them too crispy because then all of the cheese oozes out. So I'm going to pair this with the bowl of veggies that you see off to the side, and as well with some rice. Alright, so real quick, I'm throwing my rice into the Instapot. So it is 1.5 cups of water to 1 cup of white rice. If you're doing brown rice, the measurements are a little bit different. And then all I have to do is add a little oil. I think I add olive oil to this. And then you will mix this up and you'll set it in your Instapot for 6 minutes and let it naturally pressure release. So it ends up being about 16 minutes total, but it's fairly quick, and then you get nice, thick, fluffy rice. Alright, so now those scrambled eggs are all complete with the peppers and onions in there. So I grabbed my chopped up turkey bacon, I threw that in there, and then I'm just going to throw in a couple handfuls of spinach for good measure. All right, so back to the potato hash. We're kind of jumping all over here. I'm going to go ahead and add those scrambled eggs. I let that spinach wilt a little bit and that turkey bacon warm up in the eggs a little bit. I added it to the pan of hash brown potatoes. So you can see what I meant by them turning a little bit grayish color because I did not take the peels off, but it's not about what it looks like. It tastes really, really, really good. And we just eat this with either a piece of whole grain toast or just by itself. My husband likes to add a little bit of Tabasco sauce on top of his. And here I'm portioning these off. I want to say these are 16-ounce containers. So I'm putting about a cup and a half of this hash mixture into each one, which actually ended up being a little bit more than I needed, but it was a good amount for my husband. Now these are awesome too, these containers that I have. I'll link them down below in the description, but you can also just portion your stuff off and you can pop these in the freezer for your kids. We also have the 8-ounce containers and they can just microwave those in the morning, or we can just microwave them in the morning and just for a couple minutes, and then they're ready to go and you can take them in the car and everything. So this is what they looked like in the end, and they're so tasty. Alright, so next up we are making the honey sriracha glazed meatballs. These will go into the freezer for a dinner sometime this week. We'll probably eat it with some rice, and then I've gotten some broccoli slaw that you just throw on top. So I'm just grabbing my ingredients out. I will link this recipe down below also for you guys. It's a little bit spicy, so if you want to make some for your kids and not add the sauce, I think that would be good too. So I've got 2 pounds of lean ground turkey. I use an organic kind from Mariano's, and then I'm pulling out some breadcrumbs, some eggs. I've got 2 eggs there, green onions, garlic powder, salt, black pepper, and then we will talk about some of the ingredients. You'll see I'm pulling out some sriracha sauce, some soy sauce, some rice vinegar, honey, and then I did not have fresh grated ginger, so I will be using just my powdered ginger. I just half the amount that you need because a dried ingredient is actually much stronger. And then I've got some minced garlic and some sesame oil. Alright, so after mixing everything up in the bowl with my that Pampered Chef chop and stir thing that I use all the time, I'm just using one of my larger cookie scoops to make these meatballs a little bit more proportioned to each other, so they'll be around the same size. So when I cook them up, they will cook evenly and for the same time. So I'm just going to roll this entire bowl, and it makes about almost 30 meatballs. It makes about 3 bowls of these, my black containers, and then I pop those in the freezer and we'll have those later this week. Alright, so now we are popping back over to lunch. While I was making those meatballs, I was steaming my veggies in the background on the stove. So I am just going to give us about 3/4 cup of rice, or 1/2 cup, because you don't want a whole lot of carbs. You want your lunches and your meals to be more veggies and more protein. So just adding a little bit of rice, and then I've got some broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots. So the broccoli and cauliflower came in my grocery haul, and then the carrots were actually a part of my imperfect produce box this week. So I went ahead and steamed those, and I'm going to bring over my sausage. You'll see. So I'm just going to pile the veggies in there. I'm not even going to measure them because I just know we want a lot of veggies. So, and then you'll see that I'll bring over the sausage, and each container gets about 10 or 11 pieces of sausage, which is equal to about 1.5 links of those sausages. Alright, so those are all complete and they look super tasty. So the rice and the veggies didn't have any seasonings on them, just a little salt and pepper and maybe some butter when you warm those up for lunch the next day, and it'll be perfect. So now we're moving on to the sauce. While my lunch bowls cool off, I always wait for the stuff to cool off a little bit before putting the lids on. So we're moving on to the sriracha honey meatball sauce. And in this sauce, I'm putting 1/4 cup of sriracha sauce, and then 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 3 tablespoons of rice vinegar, 3 tablespoons of honey, 1 tablespoon of fresh ginger, which I only did 1/2 tablespoon because I am using dried ginger, and then equivalent to 3 cloves of garlic, I did, I think, 1.5 teaspoons, and then 1/2 teaspoon of toasted sesame oil. So you're just going to mix that all up, and then I did give it a little taste. Sriracha sauce, I love spicy, but sriracha sauce is crazy spicy, so you'll see I add a little bit more honey in the end. And then I do want to mention that I'm using coconut aminos instead of regular soy sauce, a little less sodium, and it's also good if you're doing paleo or one of those eating meal plans. Alright, so last up we're doing another dinner prep. So this week for dinner, I don't have a whole lot of meals that I'm sharing with you because 2 of our meals were from a meal swap that we did at our CrossFit gym with a bunch of ladies. It was awesome. I came home with 8 meals for my family, which was really cool. So we were having my friend Amy's lasagna this week, and then we were also having another friend's chicken verde, so it was really cool. So here I'm making sheet pan steak fajitas, and I'm just going to cut up a couple different colors of peppers and then a purple onion. We've got some cilantro, on the counter there that will get chopped up, and that's just for garnishing. And then you'll see me do some lime as well, and that is also just to give yourself a little squeeze of lime on top of your fajita meat. This is something that you can actually make and either eat in tortillas if you want, or sometimes I like to make the fajita meat or chicken, and you could do this meal. You can do this meal with chicken as well, and just put it over rice with some black beans. Get your cilantro on top, or you can leave the cilantro off. I know a lot of people don't love cilantro. And then add a little lime in your bowl, and then that would be an awesome lunch meal prep. Alright, so now that I've got everything chopped up, I'm going to go ahead and make the marinade for this steak. So I'm putting in olive oil, and then it was supposed to be a half a cup of olive oil, but I totally ran out, so it was very close to a half a cup. And then I'm going to add in some minced garlic, about 3 cloves worth, so I did about 1.5 teaspoons. And then we have some salt, some pepper. We're going to add in 1 tablespoon of cumin, 1 tablespoon of chili powder. We're going to add in 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, however you say that, and then a dash of red pepper flakes and 1 tablespoon of sugar, just to give it a little bit of sweetness, which I'm okay with. You can leave that sugar out if you're following a certain meal plan, like 21 Day Fix or Whole30 or something like that. So I'm going to mix that all up, and then I'm going to start cutting up my steak after this, and then you place it in a baggie, or you could just throw this right on the pan, pour that sauce over the top, mix it up with your hands, and either cover it with foil or saran wrap and let it sit in your fridge for an hour, or you can place it in a baggie like I kind of do, and mix it around as best as you can. I actually ended up doing a little bit more skirt steak in mine than the recipe called for, just because I like to have leftovers for the next day. Alright, so I grabbed my skirt steaks out of the fridge, and I'm just going to slice these up into strips. You can see that I've got 2 kind of larger pieces of skirt steak, so just cut those as thin as you can. The thinner, the better. They'll cook more evenly with those peppers and onions, but I was just doing it quick, so yeah, get those as thick or thin as you prefer them. Alright, so now that I've placed all my sliced up strips of steak into my gallon-sized baggie, I am going to go ahead and pour my pepper and onions in there, and then I'm going to pour my sauce over the top, and I'm going to attempt to mix this as much as possible. The sauce is fairly thick because of the sugar in the Worcestershire sauce, but it really is a good sauce. So you just kind of have to mix it around. Otherwise, you can just pour that directly onto the pan and just use your, you'll see that I use my tongs later just to kind of mix it up a little bit more. All right, so after letting that sauce marinate a little bit, and you see my husband pop his face in, he's so funny. I spray my pan with some olive oil, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pour my meat out. And then I noticed that the sauce really didn't get all over like I really wanted it to. So I'm just going to use my tongs just to mix it all up a little bit more, and then try to get everything on the pan as flat as possible so that nothing is really overlapping, like at least the pieces of meat aren't like on top of each other, so that everything will cook a little bit more evenly. Alright, and then I sliced up some limes to have on hand for when we have this. And then here is a peek of it actually completed the night we cooked it. So tasty. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe.